Hi, this is Dhiren. Our governments across the world are slow in technology adoption. The public sector is a cornerstone of our societies and economies. It ensures the continuous provision of essential goods and services such as education, healthcare, utilities, transport, to name a few, while also playing a key role in promoting growth and social justice. Also, about 11% of the world's employment is in the public sector, according to the latest ILO report. The share of public sector employment varies from one region to the next, with the level of increasing national income. For instance, 16% of employed work in the public sector are in high income countries, compared to only 7% in low income countries. The Arab states stands out with a particularly large public sector compared to other regions, where it accounts for 25% of employment. So the consumer expectations of digitization and AI technologies are affecting all industries across sectors, and all the governments in the world are no exception. But in the face of challenges, including increasingly strident calls to do more with less, many government agencies can strain to deliver program benefits, meet the public rising expectations of customer service, and build technology and infrastructure on time and on budget and every time. With the exceptions of national defense matters, the world governments have been generally slower to adopt technology than the private sector. In this edition of letustalk presentation, we shall be discussing the reasons for slower adoption of technology by the world governments and how the technology could help the world governments to meet customer expectations of the public. Be with us throughout the presentation. Thank you. Our findings on the reasons why the world governments rather, are slower in terms of technology adoptions, we have figured out few things which we are presenting in front of you. The first are, there are many examples of innovative agencies using cutting edge tech, but it is generally true that governments have been slower to modernize than the private sector. The financial constraints, reliance on external contractors, limited in-house expertise, rather IT expertise, and the challenges of providing equitable services to millions of people are just some of the most significant constraints faced by technology adopters across the world. But there is still much to negotiate about how to serve clients with limited access to electronic services and how to integrate technology with the complex and idiosyncratic knowledge of the humans, like case workers, counselors, parole officers use every day to provide effective and personalized support. So human angle is very important in when it comes to the technology adoption. Further, advanced technology algorithms, artificial intelligence, robotic process automation have begun to change some public jobs significantly, either augmenting or replacing human decision making, especially in the area of safety and welfare services. So, community and civil liberties advocates are concerned about governments increasing their reliance on technologies for complex decision making and monitoring purposes. Having discussed the reason for technology slower adoption in the public sector, we also figure out what are the key motivators for the public sector people or the stakeholders who go for a technology adoption, new technology adoptions. So in our view, in the public sector, there are many different motivations for adopting new technologies, which in turn shape the design of the tech, the goals of the implementation, and how these systems are evaluated. Nothing about the process of change is inevitable. It is highly dynamic and contingent. We have categorized the motivation as four key drivers for technology adoption in public sector, and those are efficiency and cost reduction, performance quality, third is transparency and accountability, and fourth is crisis response. So any technology which is going to be adopted in the public sector, if they are meeting these four key drivers, then we can say that technology which is being adopted is going to be successful, because at the end of the day, this is the public who has to deal with this technology. Because the technology use has allowed many government agencies to restructure cumbersome processes, becoming more user friendly and increasing productivity by allowing workers to focus more on complex tasks. The fiscal and workload pressures faced by governments have led many agencies to see technology as a way to bridge the deficit of resources needed to adequately perform their core functions. So, technology use can normalize the inadequacy of public staffing rather than resolving it. Chatbots might allow clients to interact with the system 24 hours a day instead of waiting in line in benefits office and never getting to the front. But if the chatbot is ultimately unable to provide entitled benefit, then technology has provided only the illusion of better service. So the bottom line is that technology has to deliver, meet the expectation of the public. If it is not, then technology is failed. Does not matter whatever the technology we are going to use, whether it's Gen AI or chatbot or whatever. So ultimately, the bottom line is it has to meet the customer expectations of the public. We should also mention that the COVID-19 pandemic sparked a wave of technology adoptions across the public sector, in some cases hastening already planned transformations. Areas like education, where there has typically been significant skepticism about the role of technology, saw an explosion of edtech vendors eager to capitalize on a school's experience with using technology for remote training or remote learning. The apparent permanency of hybrid and remote work is likely to continue in the times to come to drive increased automation, monitoring of workers, and reliance on cloud-based data systems. Also, the public sector must contend with complicated policy, social, ethical, and legal contexts that don't similarly constrain private sector actors. So, public sector technology projects are accountable to a more diverse set of stakeholders than private employers. Value of transparency and fairness makes adopting new technologies much more complex for the public sector, which must ensure that its services are accessible to everyone and accountable to a broad set of public values. Besides, the public sector has struggled to attract and sustain internal IT expertise and has often relied on outsourcing many IT functions, and this has led to a significant reliance on GovTech companies and consultants. While building internal IT capacity could help address some of the cost overruns and poor outcomes associated with large technology projects, might be taken care of, provided public offices do have a capacity to have the right expertise in-house. The technology adoption also impact the work and the workers. To extent to which technology will displace workers or fundamentally change workplace dynamics is uncertain and will vary across the public sectors. So there are many logical, ethical, legal, and institutional social dynamics that affects the trajectory of the technology adoption. So the growing adoption of complex technology is likely to restructure work processes as well as to reshape the interactions between government workers and the public. So not sure whether these changes ultimately benefit or harm workers, as it will depend significantly on how the restructuring is managed. Despite the relatively high share of public sector workers represented by a union, technological solutions are still frequently developed without involving workers, as public sector undertakings do not have the in-house IT expertise, or they do not have the sufficient manpower. So the governments are just beginning to put policies and regulations in place to manage the impacts of technology on citizens, but there are few examples of such policies addressing the impacts on workers. We have to wait how the various governments in the world are going to take steps, the processes that would also help the workers to evolve, to transform themselves, while the technologies are also transforming, evolving. The biggest challenge in any technology adoption is a big question: the productivity. If a certain technology is being adopted, how much the productivity is going to improve from the public services offering standpoint. If technology B is being adopted, how it is going to benefit customer satisfaction of the public. So productivity is the key while choosing for a tech going or while going for a technology adoption. So government around the world have a shared goal, I believe, that is to help their citizens by maintaining order, ensuring economic and physical security, enabling motivation and innovation, and providing other valuable public goods and services that represents the interest of the people. So in these circumstances, under these scenarios, productivity is an important driver of success as government work toward achieving these goals. As countries worldwide continue to face budget challenges, government organizations are expecting to have to do the same amount of work, if not more, with less funding. Having discussed the productivity, it is very important to mention that ensuring that technology brings productivity returns requires attention to the human contribution and interactions between workers and the technologies. Development and implementation of new technology uses needs to focus not just on the technology itself, but also on the human technology interface, which is very critical to the success of the technology which is going to be adopted in the public offices. Because how algorithms or ADM results are used at the end of the process is going to depend on the human workers, how they interpret, how they work upon those results, the dashboards, and that dependency on the people, on the worker in the public offices is actually the key to the success of the technology adoption. Because it's too often the ways that technology will change how workers function, how they will interact with the public, what skills are they are using, what decisions they are making are left out of the technology planning, and that cause a big problem, because those are the softer sides which should be considered while scoping out the technology adoption plan. So there are many examples of expensive technology projects that have failed and failed miserably because they were effectively unusable by workers and users as well. So getting technology right in the public sector is a high stakes challenge. Many government processes determine fundamental quality of issues like liberty versus incarceration, essential financial assistance, public safety, etc. So government also have access to enormous amount of data. Anything that puts citizen privacy as risk or utilizes personal data in ways that promote distrust in government services and threatens the relationship between the public and the government. So for an example, cyber security threats and manipulation of data analysis to achieve political goals also pose challenges to legitimacy and confidence in government. So it is very important. So all these factors adds to the delay from the government standpoint in adopting the technology, and by the time government adopts a certain technology, it is already been late by at least one generation. Last not the least, We understand the relationship between the public sector and citizens rests on a foundational social impact that the government will serve all people equitably, be available in times of crisis, and enable citizens to hold their government accountable to democratic decision making. Used wisely, technology holds tremendous promise for strengthening the ability of government to serve its citizens. Public sector workers are important stakeholders for ensuring that the promises being made by the government on behalf of them, because they are the sole executors, are fulfilled. So they are the one of the most critical stakeholders who are going to make that technology a success when it comes to the customer satisfaction of the public. With this is Dhirendra Gaur signing off. Hope you like this presentation. Please do subscribe if you haven't, and do provide your comments in the section below. Thank you very much. See you soon. Do take care of yourself.